Esports today is an incredibly popular dream for many gamers of all ages, and it's easy to see why. You get to play your favorite game while competing against some of the best players that the game has to offer, all while making a living off of it. Sounds good, right? I just have to grind to get there. I'll just hit Challenger and play in a few local tournaments, then I'll make it to a pro team. Well, in League of Legends, this unfortunately couldn't be any further from the truth. What is interesting is that the path to go pro in League of Legends is so unclear that it's almost impossible to take one player and use their experience of getting to pro play as the correct way to do it. Now, obviously, you have to have great macro, micro, discipline, determination, and be good with communication. And a lot of players have these skills that are currently playing, some more than others. However, many super high elo players have never been given a shot to play professionally. I think a big part of this is mostly centralized to LCS, and if you watch the NA scene, you'll notice that probably your favorite team is made up of mostly imports that were paid ridiculous amounts of money to play on the team, which, don't get me wrong, if I was paid a massive amount of money to play in a different region, I would as well. This happens because League of Legends NA scene is franchised and currently has 10 teams, which means there are a little more than 50 slots plus however many subs each team has, not counting coaching staff. Which, when comparing it to real sports, is not even close to the amount of players you would have. And a lot of these players have long-standing contracts, but this is a topic for another video. Let's just say you're wanting to go pro in League of Legends, and you're trying to find the best way to do it. So what pretty much everyone would recommend is that you hit Challenger, which in the amateur scene isn't really something that is liked. It's required at all times. Okay, makes sense. I hit Challenger, now what? Now is when you would try networking with other players around the scene and joining a team of semi-professionals and getting scouted to join an academy team. From there, you would have to get lucky to ever make it out of the academy and be promoted to the starting roster if your team actually cared about growing talent. This is the process that pro player Blabber went through to get to pro play, and I'm not doing justice how much work he had to put in. And as I said before, this is just one of the ways to get to professional play. Every single player is incredibly different in the way that they got to the position that they're at right now. There are many issues within NA League of Legends. A few to note is scouting, development, and funding. Scouting in NA is awful. They are more concerned with scouting pros from other leagues like the LPL or LCK than they are in their own respective challenger scene. This is a complete 180 from what happens in LPL in Korea, in which both regions have extensive scouting all the way down to Diamond, which is the complete opposite from NA, whose scouting generally goes only as low as Grandmaster. Development-wise, in LPL LCK, the players that are scouted have support of Tier 1 orgs and receive Tier 1 or 2 coaching. This is a big reason why these regions always have amazing talent to choose from, because they care about development way more than NA does. Ironically, most coaches in NA haven't even hit Diamond or Masters a single time. This just makes it impossible for players to pursue pro play entirely, as they are simply receiving subpar coaching. To NA's credit though, from a few players I have talked to, there are a handful of coaches who are very knowledgeable and helpful in NA, but there needs to be way more than that. Funding is huge here because these players are actually paid livable wages as well. EU does this to a lesser extent with the RLs, but in NA, the players are barely compensated, if at all, unless you successfully make it into the NACL, which then you'll be pumped money into and be what many are calling contract jail. And I recommend Doublelift's video on his thoughts on the player demands. This makes it so it's way harder for players in NA to dedicate as much time to League because they simply cannot make a livable wage, which is ironic because amateur teams now are just retirement homes for washed up pros with massive contracts already signed. In the end, NA teams would rather look for the next berserker than grow their own NA talent. Even in a recent interview, 100 Thieves Tenacity, a rookie, has decided to pursue content creation in his interview with Travis Gafford, which you should all check out. It's a great interview, by the way.
For North American players who are interested in competing in the league, what do you think that says for them?
I mean, I honestly think it's like, yeah, I'm a player who came through amateur, through academy to LCS for a brief stint, but it is what it is. I feel like the the path to LCS is just going to be super, super difficult.
So with that information out of the way, I want to get why I really wanted to make this video. The way other games are doing this process and how the path of becoming pro in these games is much more clear. Let's start with Dota, League's biggest competitor. To go pro in Dota 2, you need to get a team together, and you can do a few different things once you hit a high enough MMR. Start playing in battle cups, in the client, and eventually move towards participating in LANs and going from there. Next, we'll see Apex, a game I love watching the pro scene for. Apex is similar to Dota in that once you hit a thresh point in MMR, you can sign up for the ALGS Challenger Circuit, and you and your team, if you qualify enough times, can move all the way up to playing with the pros in the actual ALGS. Now let's check out Counter-Strike. Same with all the games, you're going to need to hit an MMR thresh point, and then you can sign yourself up for a team and face it, ESA, or even participate in LANs, and if you keep winning, you and your team can rise up to play in a big enough tournaments to be drafted, or play against professional players. How about something like Street Fighter 6? They have a system where you can sign up for Capcom Cup, and if you smash your opponents, you can also play against pros, not to mention other tournaments like EVO, for example. And not to bore you with the crazy amount of examples, but this is the one that upsets me the most. Both Legends of Runeterra and Valorant. Both of these games are made by Riot and have a much more clear way to go pro in them. Starting with Legends of Runeterra, once you hit that MMR thresh point, which in this game is top 700 master, then you can participate in seasonal tournaments to play against other players, which is based in the client. And now Valorant is introducing a mode called Premier, where players can join or form teams to complete in weekly matches similar to FACEIT or ESA in CSGO, and compete to win a playoff tournament. And this won't get you into a professional scene, and the system is fairly new at the moment, but players can also move into the same type of tournaments in CSGO and join semi-pro teams and eventually play against other pros. In comparison, League has Clash, which is more of a for fun mode to play in, where you have a 5-stack of your friends, and I can assure you no player is ever going to go pro because they dominated Clash or something like that. That being said, I am not a professional player, so maybe my opinion doesn't matter here. However, I've heard from many people that the best thing to do after hitting high MMR in League of Legends is to become a content creator. My biggest issue though is that both of these games were made by Riot way after League of Legends. They know how to do these things and how to make players feel rewarded for hitting higher ranks. I know the teams at Riot are separate, but it's unfortunate to say the least that the game that I find to be the most competitive and love watching has an unclear path to get to professional play and be left behind their other newer games.